if we look at what technocracy tried to do, it's to centralize control over the distribution of all resources. So if you've got centralized control over the distribution of all resources, so that means, and I mean all, like, so everything from the food on your plate, the water that you drink, to the energy you consume, to the materials you need to build a house, everything. They want to control everything centrally. Now, when that was first envisaged in the 1930s, there was no practical sense in which that was possible. People wouldn't have been able to manage that system. It would have been without digital technology, manually, moving bits of paper around in an office. I mean, half the nation would have had to been involved in the bureaucracy to manage themselves. You know what I mean? It was quite silly. But I think even at the time, the technocrats of the time, people like Howard Scott, knew that. They were aware that it couldn't be applied yet. Now, best part of 100 years later now. So, we're nearly a century on. The technological capability to enable that to happen exists. So the idea of the digital control grid really hasn't changed that much. The idea is to centrally control the distribution of all resources, but to do it on an individual level, which would have been technically difficult, is now technically possible. So you can individually prescribe what access people have to things like finance, to things like money itself. And if we move to a point which is something that companies like OpenAI and companies like Tether, that are heavily backed by venture capital firms like Andreessen Horowitz, which is led by people like Mark Andreessen, who openly states that he's an accelerationist, which means he openly states that he is committed to the ideas in the Dark Enlightenment. They are pushing forward the adoption of that infrastructure that will enable them to control that down to the individual level. So, for example, you can't buy meat, or you can't buy fuel of a certain type because you've exceeded your carbon footprint or your carbon allowance for the week or whatever. Now, hitherto, with that, it wouldn't have been possible to do that. Technologically, it would have been very difficult to do that. People would just forge their money certificates or whatever, which was the original idea of technocracy. But today, with digital ID, if we adopt digital identity, and if we take on these digital ID systems and we subscribe to them, that means that in short order, we will get programmable digital currency linked to our digital ID, and then we are in deep trouble.